AITA for charging my 16-year-old nephew rent to live with me. I only take 10% of his salary, but my sister is against it. So this has been weighing on me a lot lately, and I really need to get this off my chest. I've been going back and forth in my own head, trying to figure out if what I'm doing is fair or if I'm crossing some line, especially after a recent argument with my older sister. To be honest, I thought I was doing the right thing for everyone involved. But now I'm starting to second-guess myself. Back in February, my 16-year-old nephew came to live with me. This wasn't some kind of casual arrangement like, hey, come stay for the weekend, kind of thing. It was more like the end of a long road of him not feeling safe or welcome in his own home, and this was his way out. A bit of background: my younger sister, who is his mom, has 5 kids. My nephew is her oldest, and the rest are all with her current husband, my nephew's stepdad. The kids range in age from about 8 down to a newborn. So it's a loud, chaotic house. Not necessarily a bad thing in itself, but it gets complicated when emotions run high and certain relationships in the household are strained, to say the least. The thing is, my nephew and his stepdad absolutely cannot stand each other. There's no sugarcoating it. I'm not even sure where it all started, but from what I've gathered over the years, there has always been tension between them. It's one of those situations where the stepdad probably didn't know how to handle a teenager who wasn't his biological child, and my nephew didn't take kindly to being told what to do by someone who he feels has no real authority over him. Over time, it escalated from cold shoulders to full-blown yelling matches and doors slamming. My sister tried to mediate, but with 4 other little ones to take care of and a newborn on the way, it seems like she just didn't have the emotional bandwidth to manage the growing conflict. Late last year, it reached a boiling point. My nephew started staying out late and crashing at friends' houses. At first, my sister let it slide, probably hoping it was a phase. But it became clear that he was avoiding being at home altogether. He started couch surfing, rotating between friends' places and even sleeping in his car once or twice. He works part-time, about 20 hours a week at a fast food place, so he had a bit of money coming in but not enough for a place of his own or anything even remotely stable. Meanwhile, I live alone. My roommate moved out at the end of last year, and while I can afford rent on my own now, it's tight. I didn't plan on replacing my roommate. I actually liked the idea of having the place to myself for a while. But when my nephew came to me and asked if he could stay, I told him yes, under one condition: that he would pay me 10% of his paycheck as rent. That might sound harsh to some people, but let me explain. I didn't do it because I'm greedy or because I desperately need that small amount of money. I did it because I wanted him to feel like this was his space too, that he was contributing, that he wasn't just mooching off someone. I also knew from experience that when people contribute to something, they tend to take better care of it. I wanted him to start learning some real-life skills, too: how to budget, how to handle money, how to be responsible. And yeah, I won't lie, my grocery bill has doubled since he moved in. My electric bill is higher. I'm driving him to and from work half the time because his car finally gave out. I'm not rich. I make it work, but it's not easy. My sister, his mom, is totally fine with the arrangement. She was relieved he had a safe place to go, somewhere nearby so they could still see each other regularly. She knows he's contributing a little, and she agrees it's good for him. She's just grateful he's not sleeping on someone's couch or in a car anymore. But my older sister, our eldest sibling, recently found out I've been charging him rent and she absolutely blew up at me. She said, and I quote, "He's 16. You don't charge a child rent. What kind of person are you?" She thinks I'm completely out of line and that I'm taking advantage of him. She says if I can afford my bills without his help, then there's no reason to ask him for a dime. According to her, I should be encouraging him to save every penny or spend it on things he wants or needs. She even told me that I'm acting like a landlord instead of a family member. That part stung. Because I don't feel like a landlord. I cook him dinner. I do his laundry sometimes when I'm already doing mine. I make sure he's okay emotionally, help him with whatever paperwork he's dealing with from school and work, and drive him around town when he needs it. I've gone out of my way to make sure this kid feels like he has a home here. And yeah, I charge him 10% of what he makes each week, which works out to maybe 20 or 30 bucks. What really made me stop and think, though, was when she said that he's not choosing to live with me, he's choosing to live somewhere he feels safe. And when she said that, I couldn't argue. She's right. He would rather be living with his mom. They're incredibly close. But he just cannot live under the same roof as his stepdad anymore. It's too toxic. It's not like he had 10 options and picked the one with rent. I'm the only relative in town. Everyone else is at least a couple hours away. His friends were a stopgap, not a solution. So yeah, in a way, he didn't really have a choice. Now I keep thinking, am I wrong for charging him rent for something he should arguably have a right to? A safe place to live? A roof over his head where he's not being berated or walking on eggshells? He's still a kid. He didn't ask to be put in this situation. Am I making him feel like he has to earn his place here? But then I think about what he told me the other night. He said he likes paying the little bit of rent. That it makes him feel like he's not just some charity case, like he's got some control over his life. He doesn't want to be a burden, and this way, he feels like he's pulling his weight. So I'm stuck. On one hand, I want to keep teaching him responsibility and independence. On the other, I don't want to be the person who made a hurting kid pay to feel safe. Am I the asshole? Update 1. So, things didn't settle down after my first post. If anything, everything escalated in a way I hadn't anticipated, and I'm honestly still reeling from the aftermath. After the blow-up with my older sister, Lisa, the one who tore into me for asking my 16-year-old nephew, Tyler, to pay me a symbolic 10% of his paycheck as rent, she doubled down. At first, I thought she just needed to vent. I figured she'd cool off after a day or two and maybe even come around, especially once she saw how well Tyler was doing here. He's been more grounded, more relaxed. His grades have started to recover after months of barely scraping by. He shows up to work on time. He keeps his room clean. He even started cooking dinner once a week, entirely unprompted. There's been a rhythm to our days, a kind of quiet that feels like healing. But no, Lisa didn't cool off. She turned it into a mission. She called me again, this time sounding completely resolved. She told me, this isn't negotiable. He's a child, and if you won't treat him like one, I will. And then came the kicker, she offered to take him in herself. Let me paint the full picture here. Lisa lives a few states away, in a very different environment. She's got a big house, no kids, a remote job, and a fair amount of disposable income. She's always been the fixer of the family, the one who thinks she can solve everyone's problems if they just listen to her. I'll admit, she has helped people out over the years. She has the resources, and she's always been generous. But she also tends to swoop in with this air of superiority, like she's here to rescue you from your own poor decisions. She told me that not only would she house Tyler rent-free, she'd pay him weekly for chores or, just for existing, whatever he needed. Her words, not mine. She was so proud of herself, like she'd unlocked the magic solution to all of our problems. And to be fair, it probably sounded great on paper. A fresh start. No more stepdad tension. No part-time job stress. A plush guest room and a stocked fridge. But I told her, as gently as I could, that Tyler likely wouldn't want to move that far from home. He's still close to his mom. He wants to see his little siblings regularly. He doesn't want to leave his school or his job. As fractured as things have been, his roots are here. Uprooting his entire life just didn't seem like the right answer. Lisa didn't take that well. She brushed off everything I said, insisting that distance didn't matter, that she could give him a real chance to reset and thrive. Then, without telling me, she went directly to Tyler. I found out a few days later, not because she told me, but because Tyler did. He came home from work, kicked off his shoes, and casually said, "Aunt Lisa called me. She said I could move in with her and she'd give me money every week." He didn't seem upset. If anything, he seemed amused. I asked him what he said, trying to keep my voice neutral. And he told me, very calmly, that he appreciated the offer, but he didn't want to go. He said he felt settled here. That his life was finally starting to feel manageable. That he liked his school, liked being close to his mom and his younger siblings. He even mentioned that he liked the little routine we had going, me working from home most days, him working nights, occasionally crossing paths in the kitchen to cook dinner together, chatting while we folded laundry. He said it felt normal. Safe. I should have felt relief. In some ways, I did. It was validating to hear that he felt good here. But I also knew that Lisa wasn't going to take his answer at face value. And I was right. She called me the next day, furious. She said she knew I had gotten to him first, that there was no way he'd turn down her offer on his own. She accused me of guilt-tripping him, of putting pressure on him to stay here and keep things easier for me. She told me I was being selfish, that I wanted to look like the hero, that I was clinging to this idea of being the responsible aunt when really I was just afraid to admit I couldn't do it alone. She painted this version of reality where I was a manipulative martyr who wanted a pat on the back for giving a kid a place to stay while quietly wringing him dry for rent money. It wasn't just condescending, it was insulting. Because I know what this has cost me. I didn't just give Tyler a room. I gave him time, energy, patience, a full fridge, Wi-Fi, hot showers, and so much more. I've spent my evenings going over homework with him, trying to teach him how to cook more than ramen, helping him open a bank account and track his paychecks. I've listened to him talk about his anger, his guilt, his confusion over feeling unwanted in his own home. I've held back my own frustration, my own stress, so he wouldn't feel like a burden. I've done it all quietly, without any fanfare, because he needed someone to just be there. But Lisa doesn't see any of that. She only sees a situation she doesn't control, and it drives her crazy. She texted me later that night, saying I was acting like a landlord and not a guardian. She said I should be ashamed for taking money from a child who felt unsafe in his own home. I didn't respond. I didn't know how. I still don't. And now the worst part is, I can tell it's getting to Tyler. Not because he said anything directly, but because he started to act more hesitant. He asks before he eats certain things from the fridge, even though I've told him a dozen times he can eat anything. He offers me money even when I say it's not necessary. He started saying things like, "Are you sure it's okay I stay here a bit longer," which breaks my heart. Because I've never made him feel unwanted, not once. But I think Lisa's words planted seeds of doubt in him, and now he's starting to second-guess whether I really want him here, or whether I'm just tolerating him out of obligation. And no matter how many times I reassure him, I can't undo the damage she's done. I can't unring that bell. I can't make him forget the idea that someone in our family thinks he's a burden. I wish I could end this with a neat conclusion, but there isn't one. Tyler is still here. He's still going to school. Still working. Still being a generally good, respectful kid. But the air feels a little heavier now. There's a tension that wasn't there before. And every time I see Lisa's name pop up on my phone, my stomach drops, because I know it's going to be more of the same. She accused me of manipulating him, said I was guilting him into staying. Update 2. A few weeks after that last mess with Lisa, I thought things had finally started to settle into something resembling normal again. Tyler was still living with me, still working his part-time job, still doing okay in school. We had fallen into a rhythm, one that felt stable, one that seemed to give him a sense of control over his own life. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is, but it was consistent. He had started to open up more, relax into the idea that this wasn't temporary, that he had a home here for as long as he needed one. Then one night, out of nowhere, he came home from work, walked into the kitchen while I was cleaning up, and without saying a word at first, he pulled some cash out of his wallet and quietly handed it to me. I didn't think much of it until I counted it. It was double what he normally gave me for rent, 20% of his paycheck instead of the 10% we'd agreed on. I was confused. I asked him if something was wrong. Was he behind on something else? Was he trying to pay ahead? He shook his head and told me no, nothing was wrong. He said he just felt grateful and wanted to show it. That paying rent made him feel independent, like he was earning his place here, like he wasn't just being looked after out of obligation. He said this was his way of saying thank you, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. I won't lie, I got emotional. Not in some huge dramatic way, but it hit me hard. I had never asked for more. I wasn't trying to squeeze money out of a teenager. I had set the original 10% as a symbolic gesture, something to help him feel like he was contributing, not indebted. The fact that he wanted to give more, just out of gratitude, out of a desire to pull his own weight. It said so much about how far he'd come. I told him he didn't need to do that, that I was proud of him already, that I didn't need the extra money to know he appreciated what we had here. But he insisted. He said it was important to him. I let it go. It didn't feel right to keep refusing when it clearly mattered to him. And it wasn't about the money. It was about him reclaiming some power in a life that had made him feel powerless for too long. And then, of course, Lisa found out. I still don't even know how. I suspect Tyler mentioned it offhand during one of their phone calls, thinking it wouldn't be a big deal. But with Lisa, nothing is ever small. She called me the next day, absolutely livid. I didn't even get a greeting. She launched straight into it, accusing me of emotional extortion, her voice rising with every sentence. She told me I was manipulating him, making him feel like he had to buy love and safety. She said it was disgusting, that no child should feel the need to pay to be loved. Then she dropped the bomb. She said if he ever gave me another dime, she'd get in her car, drive the hours it would take, and take him herself, whether he liked it or not. That part shook me. Because even though I knew she was being dramatic, I also knew she had the resources to do it. She wasn't bluffing. And while Tyler had already turned her down once, I didn't want him dragged into another war between adults trying to dictate where and how he should live. I didn't want to be part of another tug-of-war that left him feeling like a possession instead of a person. I told her to calm down, to stop assuming she knew what was best just because she had money and a bigger house and no kids of her own. I told her Tyler wasn't being manipulated. That he's smart, and thoughtful, and more mature than she was giving him credit for. That he made his own decision, with a clear head, and that he wanted to contribute, not because he was being guilted into it, but because he finally had some pride in where he was and what he was doing. None of it mattered. She had already made up her mind. I was the villain, plain and simple. Later that night, I sat down with Tyler and told him what had happened. I didn't hide it. He had a right to know what was being said about him, and about me. He listened quietly, nodded a little, and then, with the driest expression, said, "She doesn't get it." And that was that. He didn't seem angry, just exhausted. Like he was watching two sides of his family tear each other apart over something that should have been simple, where a 16-year-old kid should be allowed to feel safe. But the whole thing stirred up more than either of us expected. After that, he started withdrawing again. Not in any obvious way. He still did his chores. Still went to work. Still came home on time and said goodnight before heading to his room. But the small things started to shift. He stopped making jokes when we were cooking dinner together. He stopped talking about school or his friends unless I asked directly. He started checking in more often, asking if it was still okay that he stayed here, even though I had reassured him 100 times before. It was like Lisa's words had crept into the corners of his brain and built a nest there. Like she'd planted this idea that love had a price tag, and now he couldn't stop wondering if he was paying enough. And I hated it. I hated what it was doing to him. Because this wasn't just about where he lived. This was about the people who were supposed to protect him, turning him into a battlefield. It became less about Tyler and more about control, about which adult knew best, about who could claim the moral high ground. And through it all, he was just trying to survive. Just trying to stay in one place long enough to catch his breath. I watched him struggle to find his footing again, torn between wanting to stand on his own and being dragged back into a dynamic where everyone else was speaking for him. And the worst part was, he didn't know how to express that. He didn't want to hurt anyone, but he also didn't want to be a pawn. He started feeling caught in the middle between people who were supposed to care about him. Update 3. In the end, Tyler made a decision I honestly didn't see coming. It had been a few weeks since the fallout with Lisa and the whole double rent situation. Things between Tyler and me had gradually started to return to something like normal, though the air still felt a little tense in quiet moments. He wasn't withdrawn, not exactly, but I could tell he was carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. The kind of heaviness you don't shake off with a good night's sleep or a change of scenery. It was deeper, knotted into his thoughts. And then, one evening, after dinner, after the dishes were done and we were both winding down from the day, he sat on the edge of the couch with that familiar mix of hesitation and resolve that always told me something big was coming. He told me he was going to move back in with his mom. At first, I froze. I didn't know what to say. My brain started sprinting through 100 thoughts in a single second, every one of them louder than the last. Was it because of Lisa? Was she getting into his head again? Had I somehow failed him after everything? My heart started racing because I wasn't ready. I thought we still had more time. I thought this place had become his sanctuary. I thought we had finally built something solid. He said it was partly because of Lisa. That he didn't want to be the reason for family drama anymore. That he was tired of being the center of a fight he never asked to be in. But more than that, he missed his siblings, really missed them. More than he had let on. He said he didn't realize how much it hurt being away until the distance settled in and the phone calls started feeling like placeholders instead of connection. He missed the noise, the chaos, even the sticky fingers and screaming toddlers. That house might have been a mess in more ways than one, but it was still his home. And then came the real surprise. Apparently, in the time he had been living with me, something shifted back at his mom's place. His mom, my younger sister, had finally had a serious, no-holding-back conversation with her husband. Tyler's stepdad. She laid it all out, told him that what had been happening between him and Tyler wasn't sustainable, that the damage was getting too deep, and that she wasn't going to stand by and watch it continue. She told him, in no uncertain terms, that if he wanted to be in their lives, in her life, he needed to step up and make an effort with her son. Not just tolerate him. Not just coexist under the same roof like strangers avoiding eye contact in a hallway. He needed to try. For real this time. And, somehow, the message landed. Tyler told me his stepdad had started to change. Not overnight. Not in some sweeping, movie scene transformation. But little by little, things started to shift. He stopped barking at Tyler over every small thing. Stopped acting like Tyler's presence was a threat to his authority. They started giving each other space, started respecting each other's boundaries. Tyler said they're not close, not even friendly most of the time, but they've found a rhythm. A kind of truce. There's a sense of mutual recognition now, if not affection. It's not perfect. But it's better. And that was enough. Tyler said he wanted to go back, not because things were magically fixed, but because they were better. And because he felt like he had changed too. Living with me gave him a chance to reset, to build some confidence in himself. He told me he felt like he could go back without folding under the pressure this time. That he had some tools now, some grounding. He felt like he could go home on his terms. I won't pretend I wasn't emotional. I cried, just a little, after he left that night. Not because I was hurt, not because I felt abandoned, but because I was proud. Because I knew he wasn't leaving to escape something, he was moving toward something. He wasn't running anymore. He was choosing. And that mattered. Lisa, to her credit, or perhaps out of a sense of victory, stopped criticizing me once Tyler moved back. She never apologized. Not once. No acknowledgement of how she'd escalated everything, how her accusations had cast long shadows. She just moved on like nothing happened. I let it go. I was too tired to hold on to any more resentment, and I didn't want Tyler caught in the middle of yet another silent feud. He'd had enough of that. Tyler still texts me nearly every day. Sometimes it's something small, a photo of a new recipe he tried, a joke, a question about laundry or budgeting. Sometimes it's longer, updates about school, work, how things are going at home. We grab lunch every couple of weeks, just the two of us. It's become our little ritual. And here's the best part, he insists on paying for himself every single time. No fuss, no debate. He just slides his card over or hands cash to the waiter like it's the most normal thing in the world. It's not about the money. It's about pride. It's his quiet way of saying, I've got this now. And he does. He really does. So, am I the asshole? Maybe to Lisa. She'll probably see it that way. She needed a villain, and I was the easiest one to cast. But to Tyler? I don't think so. I think I was what he needed, when he needed it.